In March 2023, I started to work on a board game, and this will be the first time when I post any kind of gameplay video. It has been almost 2 years, and I'm very excited to see if there are any people who are interested, what are the reactions. So, the game is called Centurion Hex, and currently it's not available anywhere online or in any stores. It's only available in my one apartment. I have one paper prototype. If you are a publisher, feel free to contact me. I'm willing to discuss any kinds of deals. And the main course of this video will be me commenting on a game of Centurion Hex, which I recorded earlier today. And feel free to jump around the video. There will be timestamps in the description where I will discuss various aspects of the game, and the main course probably will be the gameplay. If you are not aware of the game's rules, I would suggest watching that first, and then you can more or less follow along what's going on in the game, but it's not mandatory, do as you like. So basically, here's how I plan to structure this video. I will start by telling you why did I make this game and why am I making this video right now. Then I will go through the game rules, like overall things, and then I will go more into specifics, some more nuances for the rules. Then I will discuss the design philosophy behind the game. What did I try to accomplish by making Centurion Hex? What are its strengths, weaknesses, and things of that sort. Then we will look at the gameplay, and then there will be some closing thoughts, maybe. So, two important questions. Why did I make Centurion Hex, and why am I making this video? Before making this game, and still nowadays, I am a game developer, but my profession is developing digital games. I have been mostly working on mobile games professionally, and in my free time I have been making PC games. And I was working on a project which was a strategy game, RTS. Unfortunately, due to various reasons, I wasn't able to bring it to a finished state. And that game was called Centurion Hex, inspired by Age of Empires and Heroes of Might and Magic and Red Alert. And there were a lot of ideas and themes in that game that I really liked. So I thought, why not make a board game of a similar kind? So basically it is a board game which steals a lot of mechanics from RTS and 4X game genres. And the reason why I do that is because I like making things that are fun. I like making games, basically, and this was an incredible experience. It was my first serious attempt of making a board game. I definitely made a lot of mistakes, and yeah, it was a whole lot of fun, and I just wish there was a way to share with other people with this thing that I think is fun. Because sharing board games is much harder than digital games. And for this reason I am making this video. I want to somehow convey the experience of the game to other people. And while I don't have the funds or even the time at the moment to self-publish this game, Centurion Hex, to make it available in stores, this is the first step that I can take to share the game with other people. That's why I'm making this video. And I'm really keen to hear your feedback And what do you think? No, like, regardless of whether it's positive or negative feedback. Alright, so I think that explains why did I do this video. Let's get into the specifics of the game rules. Centurion Hex is a team game. There are 2 competing teams. Each team has 1 to 2 players, which means that the game is for 2 to 4 people. The average length of the game is 2 to 4 hours. Your goal is to gain 12 victory points before the enemy team. If you destroy the enemy's Senate or reach 12 victory points first, you win. The way how you gain victory points. First way is you can construct buildings. Every building you construct, you gain 1 victory point. You can also gain victory points from victory cards. There are war victory cards and civil victory cards, and each of them has some kind of mission or a condition. If you complete this condition, you can gain some victory points. A player can be either a general or a governor. If there are 4 players in the game, then 1 player in the team will be a governor and the other one will be the general. The governor controls the civil units, civil buildings, and the general controls war buildings and war units. You can distinguish these cards by their frame. War units and buildings have a red frame, and civil units and buildings have a blue frame. If it's a 2-player game, then 1 player switches between being a general and a governor. The game starts with the turn of the first team's general. Then it is a turn of the second team's governor, first team's governor, and the second team's general. And then it repeats. First team general, second team governor, first team governor, and the second team general. So what happens during a turn? First of all, you generate resources. By default, you earn 3 gold per turn. And then you can move and attack with all of your units. As discussed before, if you're a governor, you can only control civil units and buildings. If you're a general, you can only control war units and buildings. So after you have generated resources and moved and attacked with your units, you can do any of the following actions in any order, as long as you have the gold to pay for these actions. You can build new buildings, you can recruit new units, you can draw new cards, and you can also shuffle piles of cards if you do not like the available choices. So this is the outline of the rules. I will now go into the specifics of all these actions. How does the movement work, how the fighting happens, and building and all the specifics. But this is the general outline. You might be able to understand what's going on in the gameplay with this knowledge. You can skip forward to the gameplay. If you want to learn more, we will now go into more details. I will explain every part of the turn in more detail and maybe some additional nuances, such as how the board looks like and what are the different aspects of the cards. So the first phase of the turn, which is generating resources, you earn 3 gold by default. There are some buildings, units and their abilities which generate additional gold. In most cases, if you create a building, for example a mine, and it generates gold, then it applies in both war and civil turns. So a governor can build a mine, and both the general and governor will have increased gold income. Gold piles are normally not shared between governor and civilian, unless it's a 2-person game. In that case, you have a single gold pile for both general and the governor. How does movement work? So if you look at the unit card, you can see the icon of 2 little feet, and next to it is number. The number indicates how many tiles you are allowed to walk per turn. If you step on a tile which has an icon of a web, that unit can no longer walk that turn. He can still attack, but movement is not allowed. During next turn he will be able to walk again normally. Whenever you step on a new tile, which hasn't been discovered yet, you have to draw a terrain card and put it under the unit. Terrain cards can have different kind of traps or boons. If there is a star symbol on the terrain card, you draw a boon, which usually will be some kind of positive effect during your turn until the end of your turn. Alternatively, if you draw a trap card, there will be some kind of negative effect. That's the main thing about movement. One more thing that I should note. You are allowed to step on your buildings, you are not allowed to step on enemy units, enemy buildings, and your own units. Basically, only card you can put your unit on is an ally building. One more thing to note about movement is if you look at the game board, in the middle there is a tile with 2 crowns on it. The first player who steps on that tile earns 1 victory point. Also, at the edge of the game board you can see 2 tiles with 2 gold icons. The first player who steps on one of those tiles gets 2 gold for free. As for combat, combat is relatively simple. If you look at a unit card or a building card, you can see through some drops of blood. The amount of blood drops indicates how much health a unit has. Most of the units have 1 to 2 health, and most of the buildings have 2 health. And for war units mostly, there is a sword icon, and next to it is a number, which indicates how much damage the card deals if it attacks. To attack any card, you have to stand next to it on an adjacent tile and deal some damage. If the damaged card is not killed, you put a blood drop token on it to indicate that it is damaged. Killed cards go to ally graveyards. So if my unit is killed, it will go to my graveyard. And you can move and attack in any order. You can start your turn, generate resources, then you can attack with your unit, move it, and then do other stuff. Or you can generate resources, move, then attack. Or you can move, attack, move. As long as you have enough movement, it doesn't matter. So you can do that in any order. There are some units which have range. It is indicated by a small red and white target and a number next to it. If a unit has 2 range or more, it can attack from a 2 tile distance. Let's talk about building and recruiting. I'll start with building. So, if you look at the start of the game, you are given some starter cards that are in your hand. And there are some cards which are on the board. On the board at the start you have a Senate. Next to the Senate you have a Scout, which is the first war card. And you have a Surveyor, which is the first Governor civil card. And in your hand, if you are a General, your first card is a Watchtower and a Centurion. And for the Governor it is an Oracle and Infiltrator. So, how does building happen? If you do not have any buildings in your hand, you have to draw a building card from the pile. If you are a Governor, you can only draw from the pile that is in blue color. If you're a General, you can only draw from a pile that is in a red color. There are some units and abilities that allow you to draw General war cards or civil cards even if you are not a General or a Governor. But that is specific to those cards. So after you have drawn the card, you need to pay 3 gold to draw a building card. You have it in your hand, and during your turn you can build it. on what tiles you are allowed to build. The tile must not be occupied by a unit or a building. It must be discovered, so you know that it is a forest, marsh, desert, or some kind of other terrain. And then you have to look at the card. You can see the cost of building, and you can see the conditions where it is allowed to be built. For most cards, let me see if I can find an example. So for example, here I am holding a bazaar. Probably not very good focus on my camera. And it is written that it can be built next to ally building. It means that you must look at the board and see if you have any buildings. You start with the Senate. And if there is a tile with hammers that has been discovered and not occupied by any units, you can build the building there. And of course you also need to pay the building cost. There are some buildings which can be built on specific terrain. For example, any swamp, any desert, any grasslands. And for those cards, they don't have to be next to your other buildings. They can be built anywhere on a board where there are some hammers and the terrain has been discovered. And then there are very few cards which can be built on any hammer tile, such as the Watchtower. It can be built practically next to enemy Senate if it's not occupied. This means that you can create walls with your buildings so enemies can't step on them. You can also expand your build radius with various building cards. I think that's all for building. And now for recruiting units. Recruiting units work similar to buildings. To recruit a unit, you must have it in your hand. If you don't have any units in your hand, you can draw some from the drawing pile. And to draw a unit card, you must pay 2 gold. So now that you have a unit card in your hand, you can place it on a board. But you also need to pay the cost of recruiting that unit. On every unit card you can see the cost indicated with a little gold icon. And your units have to be placed next to your Senate on a free tile. If there are no free tiles, you can also place it on a building next to your Senate. If there are no such tiles, you can also place it on your Senate. If none of these tiles are available, you cannot recruit new units. There is, if I remember correctly, one additional war building which allows you to place units in different tiles as well. That's all for recruiting units. After you have recruited them, in most cases you can walk and attack with them in the next turn. How does drawing cards work? We already discussed it a little bit with the recruiting and building. At the edge of the game board, there are draw piles. And next to them, it's described what kind of cards that are available. There are 3 categories. There are units, there are buildings, and there are victory cards. And drawing a unit card costs 2 gold, drawing a building or victory card costs 3 gold. There are some ways to reveal what is the top card on each pile, such as building Watchtower, which will then reveal a top card from a pile of your choice. If you do not like the available choices, you can pay 1 gold to shuffle a card pile. That's all for drawing cards and shuffling. I will now explain the physical components of the game. Here you can see the game board. It is set up to play to start playing. This is the board of the game. And here are your starting cards. This is the Scout, the Senate, and the Surveyor. And this is the starting hand for the General, a Watchtower and Centurion, and the starting hand for the Governor, Oracle, and Infiltrator. the enemy team has the same. And for starting the game, you start with 3 gold. And here we have the bank of gold. That's the victory points. These are blood tokens, which indicate if a unit or building is wounded. So, if for example your Senate was wounded, you would put 1 blood drop on it, and you would see that it is wounded. Here we have terrain tiles, and these are the construction tiles. So if for example I take a scout and I move here, then I discover a terrain tile. So in this case we have discovered a desert. And in tiles without hammers you discover regular tiles, which are these ones. So in this case we discover a boon. And a boon is something positive effect. You can see here what they are. For example, gain 1 gold. And that's gaining 1 gold. Then there are traps. You can also discover traps if you step here or here. Now, on this side we have the draw piles. The draw piles are for units, victory cards and buildings. These are war cards and these are civilian cards. And as you can see, there are different costs drawing cards. For units it's the costs 2 gold. For victory cards and for buildings it costs 3 gold. If you want to shuffle a pile, you have to pay 1 gold. And this little thingy is to help to distinguish which turn it is. So the game starts first team general, second team governor, first team general, second team general, and so it continues. These are all the basic elements of the game. If you look at the unit card, you can see this icon indicates that it is a unit. In case of a building, you can see it's a building. So this is the life of the card, how many damage it can take before dying. This is the cost of recruiting. This is the attack damage, the movement, how many tiles can it walk per turn. And this is the ability. Every unit in the game has different ability. The same can be said about buildings. And there are various icons on the side. For example, this icon is to help you know that the building has a ability that can be used every turn. And on the gray line for buildings you can see the building requirements. For example, this watchtower can be built on any hammer tile. And the ability is that once per turn it allows any ally to reveal 1 card from 1 pile. Let me talk a little bit about the philosophy behind the Centurion Hex and what did I want to achieve with the game. As with most games, the goal is fun, and the way how I see it, I wanted to make... I like randomness. I like some kind of randomness in the sense that every game is different. There are a lot of moving parts, so you don't ever feel like you have 2 identical games. You can play 100, you can play 1000 games of Centurion Hex, and none of them will be identical. However, randomness means luck, and while I do think that some luck makes things interesting, and on the opposite, bad luck or misfortune, but I want to make sure that the game is primarily a strategy game, that it's not. You can't just win by drawing a lucky card. You have to put some thought into it, that there is strategy, and you can play around your bad luck and you can exploit your disadvantage. There are a lot of ways to catch up to enemies, to turn the situation around. and turn your bad luck into a good luck. So there are a lot of possibilities for counterplay, for counter strategy, and also for strategy. And this is my goal with the game. I also really enjoy emergent gameplay, which is situations in which different kind of mechanics interact in a way that can completely change your goal in the game, how it is played. For example, I can give you two examples from the top of my head. One of them is the civil card. You can play Emissary, which forbids all combat in the game, which means that you can attack enemy units and enemy units can't attack you. So that means at that point, the only way how to win is through victory points. You can only win by gathering enough victory points. So it completely changed the game. There is no more combat, it's a pacifist game. However, you must pay 1 gold per turn to keep your emissary alive, because it's constantly losing health. Another card that completely changes the dynamics of the game is, for example, the Dark Lord, which is a war victory card. When you play Dark Lord, the enemy and allied teams switch victory points. So for example, if your side has 6 victory points and enemy side has 10 victory points, you now have 10 victory points, enemies have 6 victory points. However, there is a drawback, and your side cannot gain any more victory points, which means only way for you to win is to destroy enemy senate or get rid of your Dark Lord somehow. These are some ways in which the game completely changes. You gain some kind of advantage, but you pay a heavy price. And yeah, these are things I quite enjoy. That is my philosophy behind the game. And briefly speaking, I think I'm really proud of what I have made. I think it's very good. I think the game is quite unique. There is a lot of eureka moments, a lot of twists and turns. It is both positive thing and a bad thing. You can think of really big brain strategy, but then at certain moment enemy plays some kind of card which completely undermines everything and switches everything around and ruins your strategy, which can be quite painful. But there's almost always a way around. There are a lot of tools that are given to you. If you think about it, you can escape from almost any situation. It is especially true if you have played the game before and you are more or less familiar with the possibilities of every card type. So that's the strength of the game. I think it's fun and very diverse, and it has a lot of twists and turns in a moment. As for weaknesses, the game has a lot of information in it. I would say the rules are not super complicated, but every card, and there are over 150 cards, has a different ability, and there are very few repeating cards. So there are 150 abilities, so every time you draw a card, you have to read the ability, process it, and especially for first-time players, it can be a lot of information to take in. So that's one weakness of the game. So there's like a lot of information and you have to read a lot, comparatively to a game where you just the rules might be more complex, but once you figure out the rules, you just play around with the mechanics. In this case, you have every unit, every building bring something new to the table, and you need to keep that in mind. As for another weakness is that you can't really tell how long the game is going to last. On average, I have had playtests last from anywhere to 2 to 4 hours recently. At the beginning of the game it was even worse when there were a lot of very overpowered cards which got nerfed, but it was possible to like win in 40 minutes or less. But yeah, it depends on what kind of players you have, what is their approach, and if they have similar kinds of approaches and they're like playing well, the game can really drag out as you like play cards which undermine the enemy strategy and slow down their chances of victory. But yeah, the game can take a long time to finish, and it can be a slog mentally. And also, at least what I have noticed, what's quite difficult for me is if you have like this awesome strategy that you come up, it can feel quite demoralizing when your strategy is countered. Yeah. So yeah, this is my thoughts about the game. I think we can get into the gameplay now. Alright, we are about to start the game, and before I start commenting, if you're confused about the layout of the board, the different components, I suggest you go back and watch one of the previous chapters where I explained the physical components of the board and the rules if you're confused about something. But as the game goes on, I will try to explain everything and what's going on. And yeah, one thing I should mention, the art for the cards, it's mostly placeholders and stuff taken from internet, so the art doesn't belong to me for most of the cards except for the ones that I have drawn myself. Okay, and as for the setup, at the bottom of the board we will have Team 1. Let's call it Team Anton. Player will be Anton, and top of the board is the starting area of the Team 2, Team Boris. And I will be tracking some of the stats of each player of each team. Manually, I will edit in the main stats, so it might be easier to follow along. On the bottom left of the screen, you should see a little panel and with various icons and numbers, and they show the stats of the team. The first icon, a little crown, shows how many victory points a team has. Gold coin shows how much gold. A human icon shows how many units they have on a field, and a house icon shows how many buildings they have on a field. And on the top right you can see the same thing for the second team. We have two cameras. This will be the main camera. Maybe sometimes if I won't feel lazy, I will switch between the cameras to provide a better view. So yeah, these are the basics. Alright, we are starting the first turn, first general, Anton, which means the red units, and he has one scout on the field, which he will be able to move, but first we generate resources, by default 3 gold. Anton receives 3 gold, and so he is up to 6 gold. He is going to move his scout, and on the screen you can see the stats of the unit, and we see he chose a path for the scout. Discovered a swamp and a forest, and on the third tile there is an empty forest, so that's where his scout stops. One tile short of getting a victory point. Now Anton is going to spend 3 gold to build a watchtower. Watchtower is a building that allows you to reveal one card from a pile of your choice every turn. So he pays 3 gold for this and gets 1 victory point, because you get 1 victory point whenever you create a house, whenever you create a building. Now, I assume it will be the end of the first turn. No, he will use the Watchtower to reveal the Dark Lord. Dark Lord is a war victory card, which switches the victory points of ally and enemy teams, but there is a drawback where your team cannot gain victory points. So after you have recruited Dark Lord, only way of winning is destroy enemy senate or somehow get rid of your own Dark Lord. So Anton used the Watchtower to reveal this Dark Lord, but he will not draw it, because he sees no point on spending gold on drawing this card. Now we are moving to second team, second turn. It will be Boris as a governor, which means the blue units. The first blue unit we have on the field is a Surveyor. Surveyor is a card that ignores the web tiles, which means it doesn't stop moving after stepping on a web tile. But as we can see, Boris has decided to move sideways, so he won't be stepping on a web tile anyway. And he discovers a swamp tile and a forest tile. And he is going to buy an Infiltrator. Infiltrator allows him to switch 2 units in their positions. And I assume Boris will switch the position of his Infiltrator and the enemy scout, making his own unit closer to the center of the board, where you can get a free victory point if you step there first. And with that, Boris is ending his turn. We are returning to Anton, who will be the blue player, the governor, and we shall see how he reacts. He starts by taking the 3 gold of the beginning of the turn, the default 3 gold income, and he is now planning his movement. So he makes the same path, just the opposite as Boris. Oh, he changed his mind, Anton changed his mind, and is moving closer to the web tiles. He discovers a forest and he discovers a trap tile. And he will draw a trap card and see what the fate has in store for him. Yes, Anton has to give 1 gold to Boris, because he drew a trap card which stated that it must be done. And Anton is also going to play an Infiltrator, and I assume, yes, he is going to switch positions with enemy Infiltrator. So at the end we are in a position where the enemy Infiltrator is next to ally senate, and the ally Infiltrator is next to the center of the board. Thus we see there is a slight advantage for Anton in terms of positions. Anton uses a Watchtower to reveal a civilian building, which is a quarry. Quarry can be built only on a desert, and if you build anything other than a quarry on a desert, then you earn 2 gold. Anton revealed this card using Watchtower, but he did not draw it, because there are no desert tiles to make use of the quarry. It seems that he is going to... Yes, he forgot to pay for the Infiltrator, so he is doing it now. And will he spend some more gold? Yes, Anton is going to draw a civilian unit, and it is an elemental. As we can see on the screen, elemental allows you to damage any building on a swamp once per turn. But since there are no buildings on a swamp, at the moment it is quite useless. And even if it was useful, he can't afford to buy it instantly. We are moving on to the first turn for the Boris team, for Team 2. As a general, his scout has not yet moved. We start by getting some default gold income, 3 gold. And he is now planning to make his first move with a scout. still planning. Good thing I have my coffee so I don't fall asleep to this. And he has decided to try and reach the middle of the board with his scout. You can see the second camera. The quality is not so good, but you can see the angle better. He's getting very lucky. He found a boon tile, a forest boon tile, and a desert boon tile. And the final tile is just a regular swamp. We should be seeing right now what are the boons. Just like with the trap, but the opposite, so it's a positive effect. And the first boon is exchange any ally unit with unit in ally hands. That means he will be able to exchange his scout or surveyor. And the second boon was gaining 2 gold, so he will start by taking the 3 gold. And then I assume Boris will draw a unit card and replace one of his started units for something stronger. We shall see what will be his decision. He has 2 choices to exchange. Oh, he starts with building a watchtower, so he builds a watchtower, pays 3 gold, and receives 1 victory point since it is a building. The watchtower goes on a desert tile, and he uses the watchtower to reveal a card for free. We should be seeing it is a hoplite. Hoplite is a war unit which has more movement if enemy side has more units and more attack if enemy side has more buildings. And he is drawing the hoplite, so he should pay 2 gold for drawing it. And then he will probably exchange one of the cards. He exchanges Scout for a Hoplite. So, unlike a Scout, Hoplite does not die when it attacks. Scout is quite weak, a war unit, because of this ability. It is a starter card after all. Boris still has a decent amount of gold. Will he choose to use it or save up? He chooses to draw another card. Pays 2 extra gold. So now he should have 3 gold. And it is a gladiator. Gladiator costs 4 gold and it gives you a free boon when you recruit it, and it heals when it steps on a tile with a boon. Quite a powerful card. I might need to nerf it eventually. Alright, now is the turn of number 1 player Anton. He is a general. And he earns 3 gold. Starts the turn by generating resources. 3 gold. And he has a scout which is going to commit a suicide attack. He's going to step next to Hoplite and damage the Hoplite. So I believe this is our first instance of combat in the game, and the scout goes down and the Hoplite is wounded. So Anton uses a watchtower to reveal a new card, and it is another Hoplite. Will he choose to draw the Hoplite? Yes, he does, or no? No, he changes his mind and passes the turn to the enemy team. Boris is the governor. He has 1 infiltrator and 1 surveyor. He will generate resources, and this turn he should be able to reach the edge of the map where you can get 2 extra gold if you are the first person to step on a tile. So he steps on a web tile. It is a trap. He will now draw the trap card and we shall see what he has drawn. It is losing 1 gold, so he will lose 1 gold. But since he forgot to take the resources in the beginning, I assume he will now take the 3 gold that he was owed. So we are 1 gold down, 3 gold plus, and now he will step on the additional gold tile, which is a forest, and draw 2 free gold. So we are in total 7 gold. And he still has an infiltrator, but I assume that Boris will not move the infiltrator. He shall use the watchtower to reveal a card. He reveals a civilian victory card, and it is a Caesar. Caesar is a very powerful and expensive card, which must be announced 1 turn before you recruit it. And at the start of your turn, you earn 1 victory point per 4 ally cards in your hands. So Boris just drew the Caesar. He paid 3 gold for drawing a victory card. And he announces that he will recruit a Caesar next turn. So the next civilian turn, he will be allowed to recruit a Caesar. Technically, it's also allowed to bluff in this game. You are allowed to say that you will recruit a Caesar, but not do it. There is no penalty for that at the moment. Perhaps it will change in the future. Alright, Anton is doing the same thing. He's using his surveyor to step to the edge of the board, and he will get the 2 additional gold. And he also found a boon tile. We shall see what the boon says. And the boon is heal any unit or repair any building. And in the small text it says that you are allowed to draw 1 gold if there are no units that can be healed or buildings that can be repaired. And since there is nothing to be repaired or healed, he draws 1 extra gold and now has 10 pieces of gold. Very strong economy. Now is the question of how he will spend it. Before he does so, he steps to the middle of the tile, middle of the board with his infiltrator, and he will get 1 extra victory point for being the first to do so. In this game, you are allowed to move all your units in 1 turn. So since he had both a surveyor and infiltrator, he moved them both. He also uses the watchtower to reveal a card, which is a Colosseum, which gives you basically instant win if you have more units, more buildings, and more gold than the enemy. Anton doesn't draw the Colosseum, he instead draws a unit card randomly, and he pays 2 gold to do so. And he draws Necromancer. Necromancer allows you to sacrifice 2 of its health to revive an ally unit from graveyard. Quite a strong and rather expensive unit. He has enough gold to buy the Necromancer, but he won't do it, I believe. But he still has a decent amount of gold. He decides to save it. And we move on to Team 2 Boris, the general, who has 1 wounded hoplite and a watchtower under his command as a general. So Boris gets the 3 gold from the beginning of the turn and uses his hoplite to kill the enemy infiltrator. There is not much benefit from doing so usually. He just clears out the way. There are some cards that allow you to use your units without attack or somehow upgrade them. But in this instance, Anton didn't have any such cards, so Boris just killed his infiltrator to get closer to the enemy territory. Boris also plays Gladiator, pays 4 gold, and the gladiator will allow him to draw a boon card for free. We should be seeing right about now what is the boon that he draws. Enemy player to your right gives you a card of their choice. So Anton will have to give Boris one card because he's the only other player. And Anton decides to give Boris an Oracle. Oracle is a starting card which allows you to reveal top cards from any pile by paying 1 gold. It's basically a watchtower in a unit format, and unlike a watchtower, it is cheaper, but every reveal costs money. So Boris uses his own watchtower to reveal a prison card. Prison card is very powerful. You can play it whenever enemy is about to play a unit, and the unit goes under the prison and cannot use its abilities until it is freed. Boris not only revealed the card, but also drew it and added it to his hand. Now is the turn of Anton, who shall start by generating gold as usual. 3 gold. Now he is a general without any units under his command. In this situation, he still has the chance to use his watchtower to reveal a card, and that's what he will do. He reveals a top card from the war buildings, and it is a hideout. Hideout can be built on any forest, and during general turn you are allowed to recruit 1 unit card for free if the enemy has more units, and Anton indeed has fewer units than Boris, so he will both draw the card and build it instantly, which should total to 7 gold. He pays 7 gold for the construction and 3 gold for drawing the card to create the hideout. And since hideout is a building, he gets 1 victory point extra, and he should be able to play a unit card for free. He draws a hoplite, pays 2 gold, and here we can see that Anton made a mistake and drew the card by paying 3 gold, even though drawing unit card costs 2 gold. This is one of the issues if you're playing with yourself. You might not notice such mistakes, so usually when you play with 2 or more people, then such mistakes are more easy to notice. And but as a compensation, Anton can still play the card for free because of the hideout. And he gives the turn for Boris, who will be a governor. Boris has 2 units from the blue side on the field, a surveyor and an infiltrator. Boris earns 3 gold. He doesn't have much to spend, so he starts by exploring. He will step on 2 web tiles, which the surveyor can ignore. If it was any other kind of unit, then it would have to stop after stepping on the first web tile. And the surveyor discovers a forest and a forest trap. We shall see what is the trap. So I assume the trap damaged the surveyor and he is now dead. And Boris is down 1 unit. Boris announces Caesar again. He didn't have enough gold to buy it this turn, and he ends his turn. He doesn't use the watchtower, if I remember correctly. Just loses a surveyor and ends his turn. Anton is also a governor, if I remember correctly. and he gets 3 gold. Yes, he is governor. He shall use his surveyor, his only remaining civilian unit, to step on a web tile and then on a building tile. He finds a boon desert and he finds a regular desert. Regular building desert. Alright, we are about to see what will be the boon. Steal 1 gold from a player of your choice. Anton doesn't have much of a choice. He steals a gold from Boris, adding to his reserve. Now, Anton decides to draw the quarry. It cost him 3 gold to draw, and he doesn't have enough gold to build it this turn, and even if he did, no desert tiles are unoccupied. Once he moves the surveyor, he will be able to build there. Now it's the turn of Boris as the general. He has plenty of war units. He has gladiator and a hoplite. Hoplite is wounded though. He shall receive the 3 starting gold and use his wounded hoplite to attack the enemy hoplite. To do so, he will have to step on a web tile, which can be quite dangerous as it can be a trap, but he is quite lucky and doesn't draw a trap and damages the enemy hoplite. Now, he also has the gladiator. He shall decide to move it towards the center, not stepping on undiscovered tiles, just moving on the tiles that have been previously discovered. And he doesn't spend the gold and gives the turn to Anton, the general. Now Anton will generate the starting resources, 3 gold. We are now at 5 gold. He has a hoplite which can kill the enemy. And he indeed shall attack, kill Boris's hoplite. And now he is still in danger. He should probably run away from the enemy gladiator, who has 2 movement and could reach the hoplite in 1 turn. Unless the hoplite retreats, which he does, backwards 1 tile, stepping on a desert. And now, as we can see, we still have a hideout. Will he use the hideout or no? Although Boris has the same amount of units, so the hideout would not apply. Instead, Anton uses the watchtower to reveal a building card, and it is a burial mound. Burial mound allows you to remove corpses from graveyards and generate gold on doing so. It can be done once per turn by any ally player. And Anton is now overviewing the board to see if there are any valid grassland tiles, but there are no valid tiles. So he will leave the burial mound on top of the pile and not pay the cost for drawing it. Now we move on to the team Boris as a general, as a governor. He only has a living infiltrator, no other civilian units remain. As we remember, he announced Caesar, so I assume he might play the Caesar since this time he has enough gold. It costs 8 gold. He seems to be thinking. And Boris plays the Caesar and pays 8 gold to do so. So from now on, Boris will generate a victory point every civilian turn. 1 victory point per every 4 cards in his hand. On the screen right now I see like 3 cards in his hand, maybe he has more. It's kind of hard to tell. Anton draws 3 gold. He is a governor. and he has only a surveyor under his command. The surveyor will move next to an enemy senate. The reason for doing so can be to like block tiles for the enemy, so he can't move or place new units. Unfortunately, Anton draws a trap card, which makes him damage one of his ally buildings, and he damages ally watchtower. Now the surveyor stands next to enemy senate, and Anton uses the watchtower to reveal a card, and he finds a museum. Museum can pay 3 gold per turn to draw a card from allied cemetery. So if you lose your unit in a combat, and if you think it's very valuable, you can sort of get it back. Or a building, but it costs 3 gold. Anton doesn't draw the museum, instead he builds a quarry. A quarry will generate him resources once he builds on a desert. And he gains 1 victory point for building a building, for constructing or placing a building. Alright, we are moving on to the general turn of team number 2, Boris. And we start by generating gold, 3 gold. Now it's time to move the units. We have a gladiator. Yes, I only see a gladiator for war units. He has a choice of possible targets. He can attack the surveyor, a hideout, or a watchtower, and he chooses to destroy the watchtower because it's already damaged. Now, Anton is a general. He has the possibility to enact revenge for his fallen watchtower, and he starts by drawing 3 gold. Does he do anything with the infiltrator? I mean the hoplite. Does he attack the infiltrator? He seems to be considering his options. And he decides to draw a unit card. And he gets relatively lucky by drawing a siren. Siren essentially allows you to exchange up to 2 units. You sacrifice ally unit, which you give to the enemy, and instead you get an enemy unit of your choice. And since he has a hideout and fewer units than the enemy, Anton can recruit the siren for free, and then use it as he pleases. So now he is deciding which units to convert and which units to give up to the enemy. So he chooses to exchange surveyor for the Caesar, and I assume also the hoplite for the gladiator. Yes, so he exchanged a damaged unit for a healthy unit, and basically almost useless exploration unit for a very expensive Caesar who generates victory points every turn. And this all was thanks to Siren. He also buys a burial mound and should probably pay 3 gold for doing so. And as a reminder, we have on the side of the screen shown what the burial mound does. And now is the turn of Boris. Boris the Butcher. the blue player, the blue governor, he has lost his Caesar, unfortunately, due to the siren. So he is carefully considering his options. He shall move the infiltrator out of danger away from the hoplite. Oh, I'm sorry. He actually doesn't move it out of danger because the hoplite is an ally and the gladiator is an enemy. He also moves the surveyor, finds a swamp boon, and the boon states that he can heal any unit or repair any building. He has one wounded unit, and he heals his hoplite. Now we see he draws or reveals a card using Watchtower. He's a monk, which heals one unit when you recruit the monk, and friendly units adjacent to monk cannot be damaged or attacked. Boris doesn't draw the monk, he just revealed it using Watchtower. He will save his gold. And now we move on to Anton, who is the governor. A governor with a Caesar. So he starts by taking the gold, 3 gold, as usual. And also, since he has the Caesar, he shall generate victory points. 1 victory point since he has 4 cards in his hand. He is drawing closer to victory. Almost halfway there. The required 12 victory points. He checks the monk card and decides to draw it. So he pays 2 gold for drawing the monk. And then he draws another card, which is a time traveler. When you play a time traveler, all other units and non-standard cards are returned to their owner's hand. That basically clears the board of all other units. He pays additional 2 gold for drawing the time traveler. And he spends 2 more gold to buy a goose. A goose can be played when your senate is about to be damaged or destroyed, and the damage is ignored. A rather powerful card, and rather cheap one as well. So he has drawn a lot of cards, so that next turn his Caesar would generate even more victory points and speed up his potential victory. Now Boris is a general. He has 1 hoplite under his command. He will start by generating the 3 gold, and next we shall see what is his plans for the hoplite. The hoplite receives some benefits if your side has fewer buildings and fewer units. Boris doesn't have either of those, so he has a standard unit with 1 movement and 1 attack. Or wait a minute. Oh, that's right. Anton had more buildings, so hoplite would deal 2 attack. So with single attack, he killed the Anton's hideout and then moved away from the danger from the gladiator, so he would not be targeted next turn. Now Boris uses the Watchtower to reveal a card, and it is an assassin. Assassin kills a unit when you recruit it, and it costs 6 gold to build, to recruit. So Boris added this assassin to his hand and paid 2 gold. He plays the assassin immediately and pays 6 gold for doing so. Now we shall see which unit will he assassinate. He has many potential targets, and he decides to go for the gladiator because the Caesar can't really defend himself, unlike the gladiator. And the assassin will be able to kill the Caesar anyways. It will just take some time. And Anton gains 3 gold. He is a general with a siren and no other war units. The siren moves up and discovers a boon. He gains 1 extra gold this turn from the boon. So he decides to draw a card to increase his victory points from the Caesar. He draws an Executioner, which is a weaker version of Assassin. It deals 1 damage when it is recruited. But if the enemy has recruited more boons, the Executioner also kills a unit of your choice. So it's potentially stronger than Assassin. And with that, Anton ends his turn. He now has 8 cards in his hand, which means next civilian turn he will generate 2 victory points as long as his Caesar survives. Now Boris is a civilian governor with a surveyor and an infiltrator. He generates the gold and moves the surveyor to the middle of the board, and we can see that he's trying to encircle the Caesar and not give it a chance to escape from the assassin. And infiltrator steps on 2 tiles, a forest and a desert. Now, unfortunately, he can attack the Caesar because it is the turn of the governor, not the general. And with that, Boris ends his turn. He decides to save his gold for the general turn. And Anton will get his usual 3 gold and also the 2 victory points from Caesar. And now Anton is at 7 victory points. He has less units than the enemy. He has the same amount of buildings. And he chooses to run with his Caesar away from the assassin. Probably a smart move. He wants to keep the Caesar alive as long as possible to get as many victory points as possible. He draws a card, a unit card, pays 2 gold to do so, and he draws an engineer. Once per turn you can damage the engineer to fix any building or draw a building card for free. He can technically afford to buy the engineer But will he play the engineer this turn is the question. And it seems that instead he goes for thinking. He is thinking. And he decides to end the turn. So it is the turn of Boris the General, who has an assassin and a hoplite. Boris will draw the 3 gold. So assassin comes closer to the Caesar. Let's see if he remembers to move the hoplite as well. He decides to draw the Dark Lord, which will allow him to switch victory points. So he pays 3 gold, draw the Dark Lord. He doesn't move his hoplite, he draws the Dark Lord, which will be able to switch the victory point situation around. But unfortunately, Boris doesn't have enough gold to play the Dark Lord this turn. He also uses a watchtower to reveal another victory card from the war pile, and it is a nuclear silo. Nuclear silo is an expensive building that must be announced 1 turn before played, and it destroys enemy Senate by paying 8 gold. It is basically an instant win card if the enemy has no defenses for the Senate. One of the starter cards, the Centurion, can prevent this damage. So you may want to attack the Senate with a weaker card first. So Anton is a general. He draws 3 gold. He moves his siren. The siren previously drew a boon and now it draws a trap. And the trap is losing 2 gold. So now Anton has 4 gold at his disposal. And a lot of cards in his hand. He's thinking what to do in the situation. He can buy 1 card and still get 2 victory points next civilian turn if he decides. And it looks like he decided to build a burial mound, which will allow him to transform corpses into money. He also gets 1 victory point because it is, after all, a building. And if everything goes Anton's way, with 2 victory points per civilian turn, he should be able to win in 2 civilian turns. But we shall see if Boris has something to say about that, as he now becomes governor and assumes command of the blue units. So we start by getting 3 gold. And possibly he will decide to encircle the Caesar, not allow him to escape from the assassin. So he moves the infiltrator and the surveyor to surround the Caesar. Will he also decide to spend any gold in the civilian turn? I assume he uses the watchtower to reveal a card. And he draws a leper. Leper is a cheap card, a unit. When you play a leper, all other units go back to the hand of their owner. Costs 2 gold. So Boris used the watchtower. I revealed the leper and then drew it for 2 gold. He doesn't play the leopard this turn. Now Anton gets 3 gold. And he has Caesar, which gives him 2 victory points, making him very close to the winning this game, potentially. He is considering his options, what to do in this situation. If he could build 2 buildings, 1 building this turn and 1 building next turn, he could win the game. As long as everything goes his way. Ah, that's right. He also has to escape with the Caesar to keep it alive. And he plays Engineer, pays 2 gold, and damages the Engineer to draw a building card for free. And he draws the Museum. He doesn't have gold to do anything much else, to be more precise. And so he ends his turn, and now Boris is a general. Presumably he still cannot reach the Caesar, because the assassin has only 2 movement points. I'm sorry, 1 movement point. And the Caesar is 3 tiles away. Nevertheless, the assassin moves closer, and this time he remembers to use the hoplite. The hoplite moves down, or for us it is up, and kills the enemy siren. So this is the very important turn where Boris decides to buy the Dark Lord, which will switch the victory points of his team with the enemy team, making so that Anton's team has 1 victory point and Boris's team has 10 victory points. However, the drawback of Dark Lord is that he now is unable to gain victory points, so he has only 2 ways of winning the game, which is destroying the enemy senate or getting rid of the Dark Lord and getting the victory points afterwards. And Anton is a general. He gains the 3 gold. And he has no units, but he has a burial mound, so he can transform a corpse from his cemetery into gold. He takes a starter card Scout from his cemetery, puts it aside, and generates 1 additional gold. His Caesar is still alive. Most likely not for long. He has a decent amount of cards in his hand and more buildings than the enemy, but he is severely outgunned in the military department in terms of unit. He draws a building, pays 3 gold, and he draws a landmine. A landmine is a building that can be built on any location with hammers, and it destroys a unit that moves next to the landmine. Unfortunately, Anton couldn't afford to build it, so it's now the turn of Boris. Boris is the governor. He has a surveyor and an infiltrator. He decides to skip the turn, and is that it? He changes his mind, and before ending the turn, he will encircle the Caesar so it cannot escape from the assassin. Moves the infiltrator to the corner of the map and finds a boon. Also moves the surveyor. So now the Caesar is in quite the pickle. He draws a boon that allows him to draw a unit card for free. We shall now see the card. It is a princess. Princess costs 5 gold, and when you play a princess, you can convert one enemy unit if the enemy doesn't have fewer units. It is basically a siren without a drawback of sacrificing your own units, but it has a stricter condition for activating its ability. Now Boris finally ends his turn, and it is Anton's turn as a governor. He gets 3 gold. He still has the Caesar, so he should generate at least 2 victory points on this turn. Alright. We have the gold, we have the victory points, but we do not have an army. And this is the turn of the governor, which is not exactly the turn to build your army, it is to build your infrastructure. Will he spend any gold for that? Yes, he will. So Anton pays 3 gold to recruit a monk. Monk will heal his engineer. And then Anton will damage the engineer again to draw a card for free, a building card for free. And he draws a bazaar. Bazaar allows you to exchange 1 card from your hand for the top card of the same pile. Unfortunately, Anton doesn't have enough gold to build it this turn. So he ends his turn, and now Boris will assume the responsibilities of the war leader and try to deal with the Caesar situation. He has 3 relatively strong military units that he can use to deal with enemies. So the assassin draws closer to the Caesar, the Dark Lord moves closer to the Senate, and the Hoplite moves backwards and attacks the quarry. If Boris notices, he should know that he has fewer buildings than Anton, so Hoplite will deal 2 damage and instantly destroy the quarry, equalizing the situation on the infrastructure side of the game. Now all the units have been moved. Boris has 6 gold. The question is, does he want to spend it? And the answer is no. So we move to Anton. Anton, the general, without any troops. So Anton draws 3 gold. Has he spent any of it? He has 9 cards. He can still play at least 1 card and still get 2 victory points from Caesar. So he decides to use a burial mound, and He takes a card from the enemy graveyard and puts it back in a pile and gets 1 gold. So now he has 6 gold. The burial mound is a quite strong economic building if you remember to use it, and if there are any corpses to use in the graveyards. Anton doesn't spend any of his gold, so now it is turn of Boris, who has a surveyor and an infiltrator blocking the path of Caesar. He generates 3 gold. Does he do anything with the gold? Or is it the end of the turn? He used the Watchtower to reveal a card, and the revealed card is a building called Rat Nest. When you build a Rat Nest, it damages all adjacent non-sunned cards. So basically an area of effect attack on being built. Boris doesn't draw this card, he just reveals it using a Watchtower and ends his turn. Anton draws 3 gold. His Caesar generates victory points, should be 2 victory points. Indeed. Now there's plenty of gold. His Caesar can no longer escape from the assassin. So in 1 to 2 turns the Caesar will be gone. Three gold. He spends 3 gold to build a bazaar, which is a building that allows you to exchange cards from your hand. And Anton forgets to take 1 victory point for building, for placing a building. And now he will decide to exchange a card from his hand using the ability of the bazaar. He takes the elemental that he has in his hand and exchanges it for something on the top of the civilian unit pile. And he draws a policeman. Policeman is a card that you can play even during the enemy turn, and it stops the enemy card from activating its ability. But you have to pay 4 gold to get the policeman. It's a very strong card. Now the engineer will kill himself to draw a building card. Now upon rewatching this, I can see that technically the engineer had to move away from the monk, otherwise the monk protects it from damaging itself. So that's a tiny mistake on Anton's part. And Anton draws a rat nest from the engineer. He also decides to build it. He decides to build it next to enemy senate. So the rat nest should damage all the buildings, all the cards adjacent to itself. Initially, he also makes the mistake of assuming that the rat nest will damage the senate. As you can see on the ability description, the rat nest doesn't damage senate. If it did, Boris would be able to play Centurion, which would prevent the damage and destroy the rat nest. But I guess Anton is kind of lucky because the Centurion cannot be played this case, because the rat nest doesn't damage the Senate. Now he plays rat nest. This time he remembered to take the victory point and ends his turn. So Anton is at 6 victory points, Boris is at 10 victory points, but Boris cannot gain victory points unless he loses his Dark Lord. So in this case I would say damaging the Dark Lord was quite counterproductive for Anton, because if he had actually killed it, it would only make things worse. Now Boris steps back and attacks the burial mound. He still has fewer buildings than Anton, so Hoplite does 2 damage and insta-kills the burial mound. The Dark Lord comes closer and the assassin attacks the Caesar. And damages him. Now Boris should have plenty of gold to spend. Will he spend it? And for some reason he decides to save up. Now it's turn of Anton. Anton draws 3 gold. He's the general. Unfortunately without any troops. I have the feeling that Anton will decide to end the turn without spending any gold. He doesn't have any cards. He could technically use the Bazaar if he remembers about it. But other than that, he has no real powerful cards. So instead he goes and ends the turn. And now it is Boris as a governor. Controlling only 2 civilian cards, a surveyor and infiltrator, but plenty of gold to spend. I have a feeling that it will be a very big turn for Boris, because he's looking at a leper and considering of playing leper. Leper would remove all other units from the field, getting rid of Boris's Dark Lord, which in this case would be very beneficial for him. So Boris removes his assassin, his hoplite, his Dark Lord, and surveyor and infiltrator. All these cards go back to his hand. He will be able to play them if he has enough gold to do so. And the same applies to Anton's cards. He loses Caesar. He loses the monk. And the board is now fresh and clean. But Anton decides to activate the policeman, which would stop Leper from activating its ability, meaning that all these cards don't go off the board if the policeman is played. So Anton pays the 4 gold. He's able to play this card because it can be played during the enemy turn. And unfortunately for Anton, Boris has a prison, which also can be played similarly to policeman. And he puts the policeman in a prison, and the ability of the policeman is not activated. So here we saw 2 powerful, or should I say 3 very powerful cards being played, and completely turning the tide. Also, Boris gained 1 victory point because prison is building. He's only 1 victory point away from winning. I believe he forgot to pay for the prison though. But he should have less gold than he actually does. He draws a building card in hopes of building it and getting victory point, but he draws a mine, which doesn't give victory points when built, as it is written on the card. He draws again and he draws another mine, and he draws again and he gets another mine. So he gets very unlucky and draws 3 buildings in turn. The only building that doesn't give victory points when built, and he draws it 3 times in a turn. He still builds it because it is free income. A mine gives 1 extra gold every turn and pays 3 gold. And yeah, as it is written on the screen, when I edited this, I noticed that technically Boris shouldn't have enough gold to buy this mine, since he had forgotten to pay for the prison. Now, the situation for Anton is quite dire. He has to stop Boris from getting 1 extra victory point, or he will die. Or he will lose, not die. That would be a bit too high stakes for such a game. Now, Anton just announced Caesars. He will build a Caesar. He will try to catch up to Boris in terms of victory points. He just saved up gold and didn't build or recruit anything. Now Boris, I presume, uses the watchtower. He discovers a building called Sharknado. It can be built on any swamp, and it costs 5 gold. But Boris wouldn't have enough gold to build it if he drew the card. He would have to pay 3 gold and then additional 5 gold to construct it, so he doesn't draw the card. Anton is still given a little bit of chance of beating Boris, so he draws 3 gold as a general, and he's now strategizing of how to counter the enemy and how to improve his situation. So he doesn't do anything, he just saves up the gold and leaves it up to luck. Now it is time of Boris. Boris draws 3 gold. No, he draws 4 gold because now he has a mine, and he draws a a building card. He draws a great library, which can be built adjacent to ally building, and it allows you to spend 2 gold to look at top 3 cards of a pile and draw just one of those cards for free. Basically improves your drawing potential. He draws this card. He wants to build it, but then he realizes that there are no valid tiles where to build the library. All the tiles adjacent to his own buildings are occupied, so he can't build anywhere. Will he try to overcome the situation in some way? He just ends the turn, giving Anton 1 more chance to turn the situation around. Anton draws 3 gold. And now he is in deep thought. He's in deep thought. He must find a way. He must find a way. And he plays the Caesar. He plays the Caesar and pays 8 gold. He will try to catch up in terms of victory points. Playing Caesar leaves him with just 2 gold. Not much at all to spend. Will he do anything else this turn, or is it... Yes, it is. Yes, it is the turn of Boris. Boris has every possibility to end the game as long as he plays his cards right. Will he notice that he can win the game this turn? Or will he let it slip by. The way how I can see him winning is he just needs to draw a Sharknado and build it. It would grant him one missing victory point. Instead, Boris plays an assassin. He plays an assassin, it costs 6 gold, so he will not be able to afford a building, and this assassin kills the Caesar, thus making the chances of Anton winning very, very slim. Anton is now a general, he gains 3 gold. His economy is completely in shambles, so to speak. And he has no units to move. He plays a landmine. He plays a landmine and pays 3 gold. Places the landmine next to the assassin, so if the assassin moves, it will explode and die. As a landmine is a building, Anton will also gain 1 victory point, leaving him at 7 victory points. But he has only 2 gold remaining. Does he see any way to improve his chances? No, he does not, and he gives the turn to Boris. Boris the governor. Boris the governor. Boris takes his leper and moves it. Perhaps he shall use the watchtower. Yes, he does, or maybe he draws the card. He draws the card, and it is Stonehenge, which can be built on any grass terrain, but it costs 6 gold to build, and Boris does not have enough gold to build it. So he cannot end the game in this turn. Yes, he shows that there was a grass tile, but unfortunately he doesn't have enough gold. Anton is completely broken. He has no Caesar and no units. He generates 3 gold. And he is thinking. He's thinking about ways how to block a tile from being built upon. He needs to block the grass tile so that the enemy could not build the Stonehenge. He needs to gain as many victory points as possible so he could catch up. He needs to figure a way how to prevent the enemy from going on the grass so that Boris could not build the Stonehenge. And what does he do? He builds a museum. He builds a museum on a swamp, pays 3 gold. It doesn't block off the grassland style, but at least gives him 1 victory point, bringing him slightly closer to necessary 12 points to win the game, and providing him 1 additional building. Now is the turn of Anton. Anton has an assassin, 11 victory points, and I'm actually not sure if he has 9 gold. We can't really see it on the camera. I assume he does. He's thinking of attacking the landmine. Not to move around the landmine, just attack it so it doesn't explode. Doesn't sound very realistic, but that's how it works. He instead attacks the rat nest. Rat nest has only 1 HP, so rat nest is cleared out, which was the enemy building blocking the build radius of Boris. So Boris ends the turn. Now Anton is in even worse situation if it's even possible. He draws 3 gold. He has 0 units and 4 buildings. a senate, a museum, a landmine, and a bazaar. Five gold. Actually, he has one unit. He has a policeman that is in an enemy prison. But since it is a prison, it's unlikely he will ever get it out. He will need a unit. Reach all the way to the other side of the map and destroy the prison. He just ends the turn, doesn't spend the gold. And now Boris has all the cards in his hand. He has everything he needs to just take a card and place it next to his senate. He builds a great library, pays 4 gold, and wins the last necessary victory point to win in this game. And Boris wins. Boris wins the first, not live, but first recorded gameplay of Centurion Hex. He is the first winner, and it was a good fight. It was a crazy fight. I had to go over this footage a lot in the editing. It was crazy, and I was, even though it's very tedious, it was very fun. I wish I could share the game with you. Maybe sometime in the future you will be able to play this as well, and definitely a more balanced and improved version. As you saw, I was playing technically with myself. I made a couple of mistakes, so it may have been possible that player 1, team 1, Anton, may have won. We saw a couple mistakes. Anton didn't take an extra victory point, and Boris overspent his gold. He spent more gold than he could have afforded to. Maybe the situation could have been different. Maybe Anton had more of a chance. It definitely would have been a much closer fight, and it was already a close fight if he had if the mistakes had been noticed during the game. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. I cannot thank you enough. It has been a lot of work on my side, and I hope that you enjoyed watching this. Thank you to all the people who have helped me on my way to get here, and help with testing, help with support, help with everything. I really appreciate it, and yeah, I hope I will be able to bring you more news on this game in the future. And if you have any commentary, what you like, what you don't like, any thoughts, comment below and let me know what you think. Happy New Year, and see you in 2025.
Centurion Hex, Centurion Hex, it tastes the best, even better than sex. Centurion Hex, a genius flex, a masterful strategy begun you blessed. Who does not believe in the glory of Hex, needs their head checks. Centurion Hex, Centurion Hex, it tastes the best, even better than sex. Centurion Hex, a genius flex, a masterful strategy begun you best. Who does not believe in the glory of Hex, needs their head checks. Centurion Hex, Centurion Hex, the ultimate game. Centurion Hex, ultimate game. The ultimate game. The ultimate game. The ultimate game. Centurion Hex. Centurion Hex. It is the best. Even better than sex. Even better than sex. Centurion Hex. A genius flex. A masterful strategy begun you best. Who does not believe in the glory of Hex needs their head checks. Centurion Hex. Centurion Hex. It tastes the best, even better than sex. The ultimate game. Centurion Hex. A genius flex. A masterful strategy begun you best. Who does not believe in the glory of Hex needs their head checks. Centurion Hex. Centurion Hex. Centurion Hex.